In all my years playing video games, I've never experienced a narrative as impactful and thought-provoking as the one found in Chaos Child. Even though it took 3 whole years before we saw the game in the West, and despite its localization issues, it remains one of my favorite games of all time. It's an ingeniously written visual novel, utilizing the medium and genre to subvert the reader's expectations in ways that never feel cheap. Now, you may be asking, alright Cullen, self-proclaimed SciADV expert, what is Chaos Child and why should I care? Well, you're in luck. If you're looking for a more fleshed out introduction to the game, I recommend watching the video I made on it before its Western release. Link will be in the description. I'll quickly cover the premise here, but this video will be more of a spoiler-free reflection on the game and why the new Steam release is so important, flaws and all. Oh, and as always, a huge warning to not watch the anime adaptation. It's garbage and will ruin your experience of one of the greatest VNs ever made. Chaos Child is the 4th mainline entry in the Science Adventure series, also known as SciADV and colloquially known as that series with Steins Gate in it. The story follows Takaru Miyashiro, a citizen of the rebuilt Shibuya, which was destroyed by a terrifying earthquake that happened during the events of Chaos Head Noah 6 years prior. A series of bizarre deaths are unfolding across Shibuya, and Takaru notices a correlation between the dates of these deaths and the new generation madness. A similar set of supernatural killings that rocked Shibuya to its core during Chaos Head. I'll be honest with you, Takaru isn't your average protagonist. He's a self-proclaimed right-sider and president of his school's newspaper club, spending his days looking down on all the wrong-siders surrounding him. Information is the most valuable thing in his life, and is why he's so thrilled to have uncovered something that no one else has. This feeling propels him into this otherworldly mystery with the intent to try and solve it with no regard to the safety of himself or the other club members. And this is one of the many reasons why Takaru, for all intents and purposes, is a bad person. This is one of the most fundamental aspects of Chaos Child and can easily turn you off if you don't go in with that in mind. Takaru's actions are often selfish, condescending, and cowardly, but God is he a fascinating lens in which to view the story through. Where he starts and how much he suffers to make it to where he ends up makes him one of my favorite protagonists in fiction. I could go on for hours about Takaru alone, and maybe someday I will, but for now it's crucial to at least provide a base understanding of who this flawed character is so that new readers will approach Chaos Child with the right perspective. And that's one of the things I adore so much about this game. Every single member of the cast is flawed, having different afflictions that prevent them from fully expressing themselves to the world around them. They hurt themselves and the people around them, trying so hard to reach out to others but still desperately afraid of being hurt again. In any other story, you'd have some bland, generic, but caring main character to help the cast overcome their hardships. But in Chaos Child, you have Takaru, so their dynamic plays out quite differently than you would expect. Takaru embodies all these ideas through his own flaws. He suffers from severe social anxiety, he craves validation, he pathetically considers himself better than those he can't understand, and above all else, he has a desperate need to feel special, unique, different. Despite all that though, there's a dormant kindness that hides deep beneath his selfishness, which prevents him from falling into the same pitfalls that many similar archetypes do. The flawed cast, and even the player, sees themselves in him, despite his cowardice. He's the part of us that we don't want to acknowledge, but know is always present. The story isn't the only standout element of Chaos Child, as I wholeheartedly believe that the game nails just about everything it strives for. Gameplay, soundtrack, voice acting, visuals, all of it screams quality, delivering one of the highest budget SciADV games yet. You might consider Chaos Child's approach to gameplay rather minimal, but taking the genre into consideration, I find it pretty damn impressive. SciADV is known for its unique approach to interactivity in VNs, Chaos Child being no exception. Besides watching the story unfold, there are 2 ways the player can interact with Takaru's world. These are the delusion and mapping trigger systems. There are no traditional dialogue choices, but instead, throughout numerous points in the story, Takaru is able to witness either a positive or negative delusion based on what's happening to him. Positive delusions can be romantic, comical, and even lewd, while negative delusions are usually visceral and dark. These delusions not only cause the story to branch off into one of 4 side routes after finishing the common route, but also give you a closer look and how Takadu views the world around him. You might not believe this given how much I gush about this game, but this is where my first criticism of Chaos Child pops up. Despite loving negative delusions and the tension they throw into the mix, I feel like positive delusions can sometimes be too lewd and occasionally shatter the suspense of a scene. It isn't enough to ruin the game, but it definitely sometimes pushes things a bit too far. One could argue that it fits due to Takadu being a horny teenager, and I would be inclined to agree, but it's still one of the more iffier aspects of the game. Both the positive and negative delusions are meant to be extreme, and I mean extreme, so all I can really say is prepare yourself beforehand. The other example I mentioned is the mapping trigger system, which has Takadu and friends piece together photos of various crime scenes or ideas on sticky notes to make breakthroughs in the case. It's an addition that never needed to be there, but remains a nice touch to help immerse players in the ongoing mystery and makes them feel like they're really there with Takadu as he pursues the truth. There are genius plot moments that come from this, and the system's music and aesthetics are perfect complements. There is, sadly, one big problem. In the original English release, the map was never translated. This isn't a requirement for a large portion of the game, but during one of these side routes, there is a puzzle that requires you to know the names of places in Shibuya. That means that players had to use a guide just to finish the game because mages never thought to address it. Based on the build I was provided by Chunsoft, this wasn't fixed. I believe on good authority that legal reasons prevented it from being fixed this time around, which is a shame. Maybe a future patch might happen to fix it, but I have no way of knowing for sure. Don't worry though, I'll provide a link to the map that my friends at Committee of Zero translated in the description, so in the meantime I recommend using that. It really sucks, but it's definitely not something to skip the game over. The sound design is well deserving of praise too. The voice acting is all phenomenal, with every single cast member giving heart-wrenching performances throughout. With that, the exceptional 59-track score by series veteran Takeshi Abo might be my favorite video game soundtrack. Period. It sets the tone from the second you boot up the game by introducing you to the game's chilling main theme. It's a warning, more or less, letting you know that the next 50 hours will be unlike anything you've ever experienced. The rest of the OST never lets up, always hitting the right beats. Take these two elements, combine them with some great visuals and an amazing use of sound effects, and you have a uniquely grim, dreary atmosphere that few games have been able to rival. While the narrative and presentation are seamlessly woven together, there's one giant area where the game is heavily flawed. The route system, while interesting, drops all sense of conveyance during subsequent playthroughs as you attempt to finish all the routes and reach the true end. Like I've said before, the delusions you choose after your first playthrough decide which of the side stories you start. That reminds me, since this is technically a review of the Steam port, one neat fix Chunsoft added was subtitling some pretty important dialogue that was unsubbed in the original English release, for some reason. Another small gripe I have is that there's no real indication on which delusions get you into which route, so unfortunately you'll need a guide to prevent you from endlessly guessing. It is also universally accepted that playing the routes out of order can negatively influence your experience. Strangely enough, the game doesn't really enforce this, despite the route's content saying otherwise. I'll leave another link to a guide detailing how to get each route. It's honestly the perfect guide to use while you play. Except for just one thing. The one thing I personally disagree with is the order in which they say to play the routes. I recommend going Hana, then Hinai, then Uki, then Nono, then True. This is just what I've found gives people a better experience playing, but to be honest, as long as you play Nono's route last, you'll be fine. There's a skip function to make the grind slightly less tedious, and granted, it's frustrating to get through, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't completely worth it. It's only after beating every route that the true ending is unlocked, and my god, is it on a whole other level. Explaining why it works so well would be a massive spoiler, but it flawlessly wraps up everything in a magnificent bow. No lie, I think I cried like 2 times throughout it alone. It's that effective. All in all, Chaos Child is a slightly flawed game that can't seem to catch a break, but its bold writing makes it shine despite minor blemishes. The delusional science fiction it proudly offers never takes away from its brilliant character studies, it only serves to elevate the experience. It's a game that I would have never imagined works as well as it does, and it's easily my favorite murder mystery story for good reason. The localization has some serious faults, and I really wish more could have been addressed in the Steam port, but it wasn't enough to make me love this game any less. The fact remains, This port is the most accessible and best way for Western audiences to experience Chaos Child. I only hope that all of you join Takadu on his adventure and give the game the love it deserves. Not just for Chaos Child, but for the numerous other SciADV games that haven't been localized yet. Your support means more than you could ever imagine, so please consider giving it a shot. And for the verdict, while I'd say in my heart Chaos Child is an S, I'd say this port is about an A-.
It's been a while, old friend. Operation Shield has not yet concluded. Nay, we have one last step necessary to achieve our goal. We will reach the gate, no matter the cost. February 19th, 2019. That date is our last chance. It seems I have to cut this message short. Stay tuned for more instructions. El Sai Kangade.